Thought Leadership Series, and I am so thrilled to have my program director here from Georgetown University with me, Frederic Lemieux, and it is such a privilege to be able to tap on your brain today and get your thoughts on very fascinating topics that we'll cover related to AI and fear and myths and our ability to correct things or not, or project things or not. But Frederic, for our audience, would you mind just giving a brief intro of who you are and what you're focusing on in your career right now?
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here. My name is Frederic Lemieux, and I am a professor of the practice and program director at Georgetown University. I am overseeing graduate programs in applied intelligence, cybersecurity, and tech management. And that funny accent that you hear here is a French Canadian one. So I am French Canadian, born and raised in the dead of winter in Quebec City. And I did all my graduate studies in Montreal, University of Montreal, in the field of criminology. So mostly related to social control, law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and also how they cross path with technology in general, surveillance technology and all those kinds of things. So I moved in the U.S. in 2006. I accepted a position at George Washington University back then to oversee their Homeland Security programs. And I did that for 10 years before I shift to Georgetown University in 2016, where I am right now, as I mentioned.
What a fascinating background, criminology, right? And
Yeah.
especially as it is today administered or managed with the necessity of technology in it. But Frederic, walk us through how you see this rollout, this massive, visible rollout of AI right now, and what is myth and what is not, and what are your recommendations for industry, for individuals, etc.
Yeah, so that's big news, right? Since I think that what really was revealing to, I would say, the larger public, it's when they released the first version of Chat GPT, and the whole concept of GPT-3 in the end of 2022. I think that's where the world was confronted to, oh wow, that's what we're dealing with, and not just content creation, but like the firm OpenAI also rolled out all sorts of other adjacent
Mm-hmm.
AI powered tools.
Yeah.
We also discovered that we could have a creative AI, like in the arts area, we could have AI like write songs and things like that. So it's kind of challenging in terms of like how we define, like what is the role of human. We always thought that we would have the edge in the creativity and the edge in the innovation, and machine will just be subordinates or something like that, right? It's been always the
Yeah.
kind of like relations that we had with technology. So it's changing a bit, but it's not necessarily like some columnist or some I would say pundit in technology. It's not yet Armageddon for for humans yet. I think that there is a long way to go to replace human. I think that like even after a few weeks of rollout of those platforms, AI platforms, we clearly saw like major issues in terms of
Yes.
critical thinking, ethical answers, and all those kinds of things. So
Yes.
you see what I mean? Like there's already
Yeah.
like some issues. But in terms of myth, I think that the biggest one is that those AI will create massive job losses. And I'm skeptical of that. I think that there will be a displacement of job for sure. Like we will see people like probably moving from some traditional type of work to other traditional or new, I would say, the new traditional. But I would say that in general, I'm very skeptical of predictions that goes over like 2 to 3 years in the field of technology. They often been proven very wrong. If you just think and like just remember back then in 1995 when they rolled out the internet, right? When they saying like now we can all be a bunch, a big connected world and all those kinds of things. And Internet 1.0 was, a static internet. You could not interact much with it. The
Bulletin board.
biggest, Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So, and you add this particular use of internet back then that was only mostly emails, right? And some of the predictions at the time was that, like, my God, like mail will disappear, like snail mail, right? The regular mail will disappear, would not
Yes.
need that anymore. And that could have been, like, not more wrong.
Yeah.
If you think about it, when internet rolled out, it's 2.0, it's 2.0 version. It became clear that commerce will shift online, and then packaging and all those kinds of things will be shifting online, and then you will have a need for more usage of like physical posts, and then we end up with a USPS delivering more than ever packages and letters and all those kinds of things, more than they were doing per capita in the 90s. So it's like that prediction here did not happen to be true because we could not foresee other major shift associated with this
Mhm.
rollout of internet.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same thing with AI. We're all like being super like like wait, not that fast, like my job and this job and this job.
Right.
But I think that the main thing here, and that will be my first piece of advice for employers and industries and investors: don't push back on AI. Embrace it. Acknowledge its limitation. Acknowledge like its biases, but embrace it. I think that that's how it will make the workforce change. It will make the difference between those who adopt it and their job might like bloom, but those are pushing on it and they push back on it, and these jobs will probably, or these people will probably have difficulty to find jobs. So it's rather a question of, are you embracing the technology and then you stay in business, or you're not and you might go out of business. That's
Right.
much more where the distinction will happen.
Knowing that our brains love to economize and take shortcuts, the temptation is always there, at least in my opinion, the temptation is there for us to say, well, if the decision making process in this particular type of AI application has a margin of error of slim, zero point 0.2, etc., it's okay to take our chances. And we're dealing with cookies, we're dealing with etc. It's not necessarily something important. In the field of criminology, for instance, that margin of error can really cause a severe impact in people's lives. How would you recommend that people appropriately focus on distilling that accuracy level, on pushing for fine tuning and calibrating in certain areas of our lives, as opposed to others where maybe that effort is not necessarily needed to be placed?
Yeah, I think it's a good point here. I would, just to take an example in criminology, but I would say in general in criminal justice, like I can see AI being very useful, but needing a human being in the loop, right? So, for example, when it comes the time to assess the dangerosity of an individual, to establish sentencing and all those kinds of things, like you have like people right now that are doing that, like recommending sentencing for the judge and everything like that. And and I think that AI could be extremely valuable in terms of like weighting all those kinds of criteria to enter in the model, and also maybe taking in account all sorts of precedents, right? So looking at like people that done those kinds of crimes, and what kind of sentencing they faced and all those kinds of things. So it could provide like a guideline, and then within that guideline, then the human being, which will probably be very narrow, very accurate. Now, in this particular guideline, possibly like the human being can come up and say, okay, but now the individual has registered in this kind of program for rehabilitation, or this kind of things and this kind of that, which could not necessarily be taken in account because it's happening right now. It's or showing remorse or showing those kinds of things. So those probably like a human factor or human sensitivities will probably come at play and try to assess, are we in the lower end of the guideline, or are we in the higher end of the
Yeah.
guideline? Same thing for policing. So policing, there's clearly an issue in using AI for distribution of police forces in a given territory, right? So basically, it will be easy to understand that the AI algorithm will probably like send law enforcement where the crime is reported the most. So because it's likely that law enforcement will be required in that area, but it also reinforced the criminal detection. So there is a problem of like almost wishful thinking and like full self-fulfilling prophecy,
Right.
where if you send police somewhere, they will see crime at some point. If you don't, they don't. But so the thing is we need a little bit more of sensitivity about how human can contribute to say now. Right now it's we are targeting areas instead of like really like accurately and probably equally dealing with crime situations. So we are fueling this perception of crime is higher there than there,
Right.
and that's the problem with AI, because the AI won't seeing that. It was just saying, oh, I am like I'm corroborating over and over. Yeah, but
Yes.
you send police as a sensors, you send sensors all the time at the same place, so of course you come back positive all the time. So there's this kind of issue right now that's being addressed in many cities to counterbalance this kind of like bias from the AI. So that proves that the human has to be in the loop. But if we
Right.
want to also step back a little bit from that and see how, for example, human has to be in the loop, we see also that like AI is more and more in demand to be in the loop. So if you look, for example, to some areas of medicine, surgery, for example, there's some specialized surgery that have been proven to be far more effective with less return of patient for complication when AI is an assistant to the surgeon. Just less mistake, more precise surgery planning and execution and things like that. And therefore, in this particular case, having only a human in the loop is not necessarily as performant than having a human with an AI in the loop. So they kind of like in different industry counterbalance each other. But what I'm getting at is in the loop will become a norm. So
Mm-hmm.
meaning that the human will be there, but the AI will be there as well in many professions.
Do you think, Frederick, that the critical thinking skills of the in the loop individual will need to be considerably sharpened in this environment as opposed to in more static environments? The sheer volume, effect, dynamic aspect of what AI can assist with will, I see it as having the person be required to take a lot more training in how to spot things, how to check for things, more depth in certain areas. And how do we prepare people for that?
For now, if we just want to take an example of Chat GPT, because it's accessible, people can try it right now. Um, you know, that platform works on queries, right? So everything is about how you query the system, and I think that one of the most important thing is critical thinking will be like, how do we formulate our queries? Because if you change it, I don't know if you played with it,
Right, yes.
but if you change it slightly or you add more
Mm-hmm.
details to your
Yes.
questions, the answer is evolving. I'm not saying that it's totally different, but parameters are added
Yeah.
as you go. So I think that this self-reflection on how do you yourself instill, I would say, bias in the system by asking, truncated question or incomplete question
Mm-hmm.
or loaded question. I think that's a first step.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I do believe, like by playing with the platform, you still need this kind of conceptualization in your mind. Like let's say you want to write a paper about like how a concept relates to another in a specific context, and I don't think that ChatGPT could do the research for you, but could be an interesting point of starting point for the review of literature, right? It's trying to see like what's connected,
Yes.
what the AI is telling you that you are onto something there. So, but the thing is, it will only give you bits and bytes of those connections, right? So then you have to do the whole work of either referencing it
Yeah.
or and then seeing if there is like like situation where it doesn't apply, or also like the whole concept of like piecing it together, like right now AI doesn't like it answered, like I mentioned before, to a specific query, but that query could be like one item among many others that gives you the full picture.
The
And
orchestration is still yours. Yeah.
exactly, so that
Yeah.
conceptualization right now, AI is not as good as a human being to see those kinds of like possible tangential relationship between things. You if you don't ask, you won't know. And so you have this kind of like, when you just imagine structuring a paper with different kind of themes. I mean, I don't think that ChatGPT right now can give you this whole thing. You will have still to conceptualize that and be aware of those connections and their limitation, where a second level of critical thinking can get in.
Yeah, it is very, very fascinating. Yes, and I have been playing with it already. What would you say for a mid-career professional that sees that the industry in which they're in is going to leverage AI heavily, and they don't know where to start? And also, they want to be helpful in the governance of it. And by that, I don't mean limiting, but I do mean properly deciding what to use, when, etc. Where would you send them, regardless of industry, to start exploring, to start getting more acquainted, to start mastering this?
Yeah, I would say like the first thing that you want to do is look at any kind of tools in your industry that could be powered by AI and can improve your work. I know that most of those tools will be expensive, but when you're talking about professional development, sometimes it's not just like like in personal skills like communication and so on. Sometimes it's technology literacy, and
That's right.
sometimes it's
Yeah,
adopting technology.
yeah.
So I would say that that would be like an important step. Like I was discussing, I was doing yesterday a recording like that, but in studio, and the person was saying like, listen, we are doing the video recording, but the audio is on a different channel. And with the audio, we are generating a script. And with that script, we can edit the script and then refeed that in the audio. And every word you did not say is added. And I said, like, what? Yeah, we can. I mean, they cannot but if right
Right.
now we are what? Like, we are probably like 12 minutes into the interview. Right now, you will have enough material for AI to be trained on my voice, for
Yeah,
the AI to be able to add word here and there, and it
that's right.
doesn't look like it's someone else saying it.
Yeah,
So you can, I mean, but I mean, you understand that if you are in the business of doing videos and you are a video, grapher or video, you need that. I
yeah,
mean, there's no way tomorrow that you can be competitive in the workforce
exactly.
if you don't know how to use this.
Exactly.
And so you don't have to create it to program it, but you have to know how to use it. And
Yes.
I think it's those kinds of steps that will be important. The other thing is, that's on the individual side, like this kind of intellectual curiosity to explore where are the frontier of AI application in your industry and your job or career path. The other thing is at the organizational level. I think that organization have to do a good job of right now providing guidance and guidelines or framework on the application of AI for the field. Like ChatGPT sounds like a big, revelation to the lay public, but journalism is using that for quite a bit now in
That's right.
terms of generating,
Yeah.
content, and then they
For a
edit and
long
they,
time.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I mean, but they don't think that it's bad and it's plagiarism and it's
Yeah.
cheating, or it's idea generation, and then a journalist come behind and plug the
Yes.
holes with like the facts and the sources, and this is so I think this but they have those rules of engagement with the technology. Like, you can push it up to this point, and after that you need to be content creation driven on the human side to claim ownership, to claim authorship of that material.
Yes.
So that kind of relationship, with the technology on the organization side needs to be developed, and organization has to start thinking about that right now, because they will fall behind, and then they will be called out, and then they can be sued if
That's
if
right.
it's not done properly.
That's right. I see it as a fascinating place for good governance, good decision making, when to pull each lever, what to maximize and not.
Yeah,
And that is a creative process in itself,
yeah,
because you need to apply those threshold of tolerance for risk, and the tone at the top, and how much liability wise you're willing to be on the hook for or not. So it's an exciting place. I see a lot of fintech being pulled heavily, organizations that, let's say, mid-market financial institutions that were not dabbling too much in AI, and now after ChatGPT, they're being really bombarded to implement a whole lot more. Is there any general advice that you would give to them, as they deal with vendors, and how to appropriately frame questions for, especially for those that are not well versed in AI but are purchasing tools that have it? Some recommendations on what to look for so that they're not getting something they don't want.
yeah. So I would say for fintech, I would say two things. If you're looking for security, I think that they've been established, technology have been really well established for the use of AI for detection and all those kinds of things.
Yes.
I think that's pretty proven and established, and better than human being. And in fact, it can help to address address the workforce gap in cybersecurity, and digital fraud and all those kinds of things. That is fine. The other application of AI that I can see, and I'm not like a financial person, so I'm tiptoeing there. But it's the it's for example, investment projections, directions of like let's say stock markets, all those kind of things. And I think that now for that particular aspect, it's a little bit more risky when you enter risk into your financial business model. I think one of the thing that and it's the same thing I would say for intelligence, the community. Like let's come back to them after that,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a connection there. It's the explainability of AI, how AI came at that conclusion or that recommendation for investment. And I think that just assuming that we fed enough data for the AI just to trust it could be a dangerous slippery slope. The only reason why is most AI models slipped over time, right? They are drifting because data is changing. It might not be perceivable to the human eye, but like different like change. Sometimes it could be an outlier here, an outlier there, and then it changed the calibration of your AI, and you start to have like predictions that are not necessarily as expected, and then you start to take risk and lose. So that particular aspect needs to be addressed. So the drifting part is much more like a change in what the AI has been trained versus the reality that it's predicting on. There's a delta difference happening there. But the other thing is, whatever there is a drift or not, is having this ability to kind of like audit the AI and make sure that the AI, the explainability is there, and it makes sense on a human perspective, that this reasoning or those connections being made for projections are sound, and are just not like uh, an awful lot of good guess. And because now you are on a very dicey model. But it's the same thing. For example, I work a lot with the Intel community, and it's a big area of pushback of using AI for like assessing and projecting, for example, what could happen in a given geopolitical tension, and like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it is still human being leading in that area, but there's a lot of talk of adding more and more AI model and there's and the problem here, it's the problem of the black box. Like, we don't know why AI
Exactly.
is going to that conclusion yet. So
Transparent.
developing, especially for risk industry, like where
Yeah.
risk is either something that you're totally avert, or risk is something that you are building your business model on needs more explainability.
The FTC has had guidelines for quite some time on this, and most folks actually don't know. But do you see them changing now with the explosion of the usability of AI, with the day-to-day individuals using it for everything that is in front of them, as opposed to having it embedded before in some services or apps, etc.?
Yeah, it will have to change. Like I think that right now, it's not necessarily like in fintech, but it's in a larger usage of AI. Like Europe right now is legislating to control the application of AI to certain data sets, to certain, like analytics and so on and so forth. So I don't think the US is ready for hearing those kinds of things, but I think that some field like the financial field will have to see that being revised to avoid, because I mean, listen, they have pretty much like established rule on how to bank, how to operate financial ventures and all those kinds of things, and they still cut corner and they still fumble and go bankrupt and sometimes create crisis. So imagine what could happen if we unleash unregulated technology that makes decisions for us. I mean, it's a recipe for a disaster, right?
Yes. Any last thoughts, Frederic, that you would like to convey to our audience regarding all of this that is happening, and also looking towards the future? You're in a privileged position where you get to see a lot of traffic and deal with a lot of individuals that are building, creating, normalizing, executing at a level that rules the country. Is there anything that you would like to mention to prepare folks to be a lot more adept or for the industries?
Like I said, I think that the key word here is embracing the technology sooner than later. I'm saying that because, like sometimes we see like all sort of technology like popping up, right? So we had, like a big talk about like blockchain, and blockchain was something like really discussed and so on, and it fade out, or it's there, but it doesn't like take off like AI is doing right now.
Right.
But I really do believe that we are in, with technology, we are in a exponential development, right? So the AI evolution is very rapid. So now the problem with AI is it is limited by the computing power, and that's about to change. And we probably have like I will be careful with my own prediction over 3 years period, but we probably have like a limited time window. If I had to guess, and it's a guess, we're maybe thinking about like 5 years from now, where a more powerful computer will be spreading, and thinking about quantum, of course, or anything in between what we have now and quantum. And that will certainly multiply the usage or the capabilities of AI. And if you don't adopt that, how do you think you will catch up? And especially if competitors are already adopting AI, you will be totally outmatched by these changes. So embracing it could be a recipe for success for future change, because what I see is really like tech fusion. So AI will start to mesh with other technologies, and you really want to keep your eyes on that particular ball of like those meshes that are happening.
Where do you see the first couple of meshes to be concentrated on?
I would say right now, the big ones will be healthcare. I think that will be a big one. Like especially with all the research and so on. I think that you will have, for the analytical purposes, and the amount of data that we have about health. I think this is something that will be probably like a major. But what I would see something that might explode, it's emotional AI. So an AI that really can dialogue and with us, like this kind of like day-to-day assistant or companion. And I'm not talking about a romantic companion, but I'm talking about somebody that is kind of your day-to-day assistant,
Yes.
more than Alexa,
Good
let's
point.
say.
Good point. I
So
see it here too. Yeah.
yeah, and so I think that's also like a big business that will be developed there, and of course like there is like military applications that we will not like. That's pretty much negative, but there's a lot of things happening there too.
This is fascinating, and I am so grateful for your time, Frederic. Today, I would hope that you come back and visit us, and we piggyback on this topic and go more in depth in some of it. But it's a privilege to have you. I know how busy you are, and yet you took your time to do this. Our audience, if they want to chat with you, is there a particular address or blogs that you are leveraging? Where can they find you?
Well, I mean, they can follow me on right now on LinkedIn. So I'm, just type my name on LinkedIn. I post often. Right now, I'm focusing on what's going on in worldwide in geopolitics, but I also post often about technology, and you can also reach me through my professional email, which is fl409409 at georgetown.edu.
Thank you so much.